Key takeaways from the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix.
Before we go on, please ensure you like the video and subscribe.
1. McLaren's dominance. Piastri and Norris lead the charge. McLaren showcased exceptional performance, with Oscar Piastri securing pole position and victory, followed closely by teammate Lando Norris. Their 1-2 finish underscored McLaren's continued dominance in the 2025 season. Red Bull was the only team that seemed to be able to put pressure on the McLarens. Max Verstappen took the second position from Lando Norris in the very first lap by braking late and driving around the outside of Norris through the turn 1 right-hander. On lap 13, Norris passed Verstappen into turn 1 to retake second position, with Verstappen pitting at the end of the lap to take a new set of soft tires. Verstappen's new tires were so effective that when Norris and Piastri pitted on laps 21 and 22, respectively, they found upon rejoining that Verstappen had undercut them and taken the race lead, with the caveat that he was now on far older tires. Verstappen made his second stop at the end of lap 29, switching to medium tires and rejoining in fourth position behind Piastri, Norris, and Leclerc. This made it clear Verstappen intended to make 3 pit stops in the race, whilst the leading McLaren pair could make it to the finish on just 2. After easily passing Leclerc into turn 1 on lap 35, Verstappen made his final planned stop on lap 48 to switch onto another set of soft tires. The leading McLarens quickly responded to the risk of another undercut by themselves stopping, also switching to the softs. It was clear that despite the Red Bull's race pace and innovative strategy, that the McLarens had enough in reserve to cover everything that Red Bull threw at them, and none of the other teams came close to challenging them, despite the hope that TDXXX would slow them down. Verdict: things are looking good for the McLaren and for Oscar Piastri, especially since he seems to have the measure of his teammate Lando Norris and is less prone to errors and huge swings of performance. 2. Max Verstappen's frustration that led to a penalty. Max Verstappen's race was marred by an unfortunate incident late in the race when he collided with George Russell and subsequently received a 10-second penalty that dropped him from 5th to 10th place. On lap 55, Antonelli, who had been running in 7th place, suffered an engine failure, his second in 3 races, and pulled off into the turn 10 gravel trap. This caused the safety car to be deployed, leading the entire top 9 drivers to pit and take fresh tires, some new, some used for the restart. All these drivers switched to the soft tire, except Verstappen, who with no soft sets remaining, was forced to take the hard compound, something which he expressed displeasure with over the team radio. The safety car came in at the end of lap 60. Verstappen, finding it difficult to warm his hard tires, struggled to control the rear of his Red Bull. This allowed Leclerc to pull alongside and despite the pair making contact, was able to pass Verstappen and take the 3rd place. Russell attempted to follow him through, diving up the inside of Verstappen and forcing the Red Bull driver to cut across the runoff. Verstappen took to the team radio to critique his competitors, accusing Leclerc of ramming him on the straight, and refusing to comply with his engineer's request to let Russell through, in order to protect against a potential penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. On lap 64, Verstappen appeared to let Russell pass on the exit of turn 4, but then deliberately dived back up the inside, leading to him making contact with the Mercedes. Verstappen ultimately would let Russell through at turn 12 on the same lap, but would still receive a 10-second penalty for the collision at turn 5. Although many people called the choice of the hard tires an uncommon strategy error from Red Bull, we must remember that Red Bull were the only team that opted for a 3-stop strategy and used their tires hard to attempt to pressure the McLarens. Red Bull and Max were aware that this was the only option available to them for putting any sort of pressure on the McLarens, and it would be at the cost of using up all his tires. The unfortunate Timmy MG of the safety car was what put their strategy in jeopardy. Max should therefore have had enough self-control not to lose his cool and deliberately cause the collision with George Russell, out of frustration. The subsequent 10-second penalty dropped Verstappen from 5th to 10th place. Verdict: the Red Bull is simply not good enough this year to guarantee Max a 5th consecutive MDC. Red Bull thus have to be creative to keep Max competitive, but that leaves no margin for error. Throwing away what would have been at worst 10 points because of frustration could be the death knell for Max's championship aspirations. 3. Mercedes' dogged race of 2 parts. Russell's gritty drive. It is clear that Mercedes' recent upgrades have not worked, at least not at Monaco, and not in Barcelona either. Although George Russell drove a gritty race, starting from 4th and finishing 4th, it was clear that Mercedes did not have the race pace to keep up with the frontrunners. He, however, kept the pressure on Lewis and was able to undercut him in the final stint. That put him 2 places behind Max Verstappen when the race resumed after the safety car, enabling his overtake of Marx. That gave him back his 4th place finish. Meanwhile, Kimi Antonelli languished behind his teammate G. Russell for most of the race, until he had an engine blowout on lap 55 that ended his RTACE prematurely. Verdict: back to the drawing board for Mercedes, or give up on the 2025 season and focus on 2026. 4. Aston Martin's setback, Stroll's withdrawal. Aston Martin faced challenges as Lance Stroll withdrew from the race due to wrist pain, leaving Fernando Alonso to carry the team's hopes. Alonso managed to finish 9th, earning valuable points for the team. Despite an earlier excursion into a gravel trap that would have put paid to the race of some other drivers. Balismano. 5. Ferrari's struggles, a shame that has not yet been sorted out. Ferrari's race was one of contrasts, with Charles Leclerc climbing from 7th on the grid to stand on the podium in 3rd position, whereas Lewis Hamilton dropped from 5th on the grid to 6th, having been gifted 1 extra place from Max Verstappen's 10 seconds penalty. At the start of the race, Lewis confidently overtook George Russell, as Charles also overtook Kimi Antonelli. Charles also overtook Russell, and it was clear that the Mercedes did not have the pace to compete with the Ferraris. However, it soon became clear that Lewis was struggling for pace in a car that proved too difficult to drive, and was asked to let Charles Leclerc by. Lewis later labeled it the worst car I have ever driven, highlighting the fact that Ferrari has still not been able to sort out the issues that have plagued the car from the start of the season. George Russell kept the pressure on Lewis, sensing his struggles with the car, but was never able to come closer than 1.5 seconds of the Ferrari. In the final stint, however, Russell was able to pit early for brand new softs, whereas Lewis had to carry on his stint for another X laps, because he had only used soft compounds remaining, and would be under a lot of pressure at the end of the race if he pitted early. That allowed George to undercut him. With the arrival of the safety car, Lewis was raring to go, hoping to overtake Russell and even Max that was on the hard compound. But his race pace was so bad that he actually lost a place to Nico Hülkenberg. The rest of the race was marked by Russell trying very hard but not able to catch Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari overtook both Red Bull and Mercedes to 2nd place in the WCC. This is a gross flattery of a team that has underperformed since the start of the season, flattered by the fact that only 1 driver is presently contributing to the points scored at Red Bull, and Mercedes has the rookie Kimi, still learning the trade, and have now had 2 DNFs due to engine issues. Verdict: back to the drawing board for Ferrari, and if the expected upgrades at Montreal do not work, expect a few heads to roll. 6. Tire strategies impact, a race of tire management. The race highlighted the critical role of tire strategy, with teams opting for different compounds and pit stop strategies. This variability led to dynamic racing and overtaking opportunities. It made absolutely no impact in the competitive order of the teams. No team seemed to have been slowed down by the TD. The TD therefore faced a lot of criticism. Lewis Hamilton labeled the change a quote of money, questioning its effectiveness in improving competition. One thing we must remember though, is that the TD had been released since before the start of the season, and a lot of clever engineers have been hard at work, eliminating the negative effects of the TD. 8. Underdog performance, Hülkenberg's top 5 finish. Nico Hülkenberg delivered a standout performance, finishing 5th, and outperforming several established drivers. His result highlighted the unpredictable nature of the sport.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.